Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And in this case, we're talking about transportation and trucking and concerts, the music industry, how all those worlds combine. We're honored to have with us Sharon Lee, President and CEO of High Road Incorporated. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Jeremy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with a little bit of the background, the backstory for what led you to get into this business of trucking and transportation and working with bands and concerts. And so give us a little bit of the backstory of what led you to launch this in 2016.
So I had been in trucking for about 20 years. And it was just that I had always been in sales and marketing, went to work for this company, just happened to be a trucking company. We really focused on trade shows and conferences. So that was a big part of my world for about 20 years. When my oldest daughter was a teenager, we did a lot of Jonas Brothers concerts together. And we were at one concert one night and I saw what looked to me like trade showcases, but were actually road showcases. And I went, wow, those look just like what we ship. I wonder if we could do this. Didn't know anything about it. Fast Forward was the company that I was with, was a franchise, and they were closing their doors. Timing felt right for me to started my own, and I really just went hard after music industry, not knowing anything other than it looked a lot like trade shows.
When you talk about getting into a business, there's a lot of learning curves. And obviously on your end, when you talk about just we were, talking before we hit record, but just different time zones and mapping out, like there's a lot of nuances to this versus maybe traditional trucking. So dive into how all this magic works and some of the major differences when you talk about working with bands and concerts.
Right. Yeah. So in the trucking world, general trucking, which we still do some of that with our boss, we have a Boston facility. The timing is not quite as imperative. You can deliver anytime on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday if you have to. Trade shows, a little bit more fine-tuned. You have to be there Tuesday, maybe between 9 and 1. But when you're doing a concert, you have to be there or the show's not happening. So when your load in is at 8 a.m., your load in is at 8 a.m. Trucks are different. The equipment they carry is different. Ramps, load bars, straps, interior lighting because they're loading in and out at night, different type of a driver completely. That driver has to be okay that he's going to be gone 6 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, whatever the tour may call for. And it's busy. They're loading in, they're driving all night, they're unloading in the morning, going to bed all day. Very different schedule than what a traditional trucker may do.
How much do you get into sitting down with the team of the band and figuring out, okay, how much equipment, what is it going to look like, how many trucks, like how are we going to stack it? Does it get stacked the same time every single time? Like, talk about kind of that aspect, because it's like a lot of playing Tetris, to map out, make sure that you have everything you need.
That's a really good analogy. So we work with the production company, the production manager, the tour manager, whoever's involved in what's going on the truck. A lot of times they already know, because when they're budgeting, they have to assume how many trucks they're going to need, how much production, how much lighting, video, sound, what that's going to look like and where it will fit. So they usually have a really good understanding of that. Some of the complications come when it's a European tour that's coming to the US. And it's very different. European trucks are smaller, but they can carry more weight. So you have to take that into account when you're figuring out the space. Generally speaking, they'll get into rehearsals. You'll have some time where you're working on the configuration of the trucks. And by the first or second show, you're done. You know exactly what's going in what truck, where it belongs. We were on a tour last year. That wasn't the case. They had to keep reconfiguring. I think the first 8 shows, they were still trying to figure out what goes in each truck. And the problem with that is what should be a 2 or 3 hour load is now 8. And so that exacerbates the time that the drivers have to get to the next location. And so it's really kind of a science of how they get things done and how it fits. And they have to be sure they have it right before we get out on tour. I'd like to say we take credit for that, but a lot of it's not our doing.
Well, but it goes to show, like anything from the outside, it's like you just show up to a concert. But then, when you start getting inside the business of it, the logistics, like how much is in the little details. And just like you said, you've got to be able to get there on time, and you can't waste time, and all of this kind of the science of it to be able to bring it to life and to make sure that the show goes on for the audience is imperative. And so carry that into some of the lessons that you've learned when you look at, going through this process, working with the production companies and, everything that you're kind of talking about. What are some of the major lessons that you've learned over the last few years in terms of creating success for the company?
Yeah. One thing I will say, trust the drivers. We have a great team of drivers. And so our process is whenever we have a tour that we're going to be doing, we've gone through the quoting process and built the relationships. The first thing we do is we have a Zoom call. And our Zoom call is our team, whoever's on our management team that's working with that particular tour, their team, usually it's the tour manager or production manager, and we bring the lead driver in. And prior to the call, the lead driver goes through the routing. He looks at all the venues, which ones may be challenging, what the parking situations may be like, especially if you're going into someplace like New York City. Playing Madison Square Garden is a challenge when it comes to parking 10 trucks. They'll look at that, questions about the routing, the tour, particular needs that the tour may have. So for me, I think the biggest lesson learned is trusting the drivers. They know what they're doing. And they want to be successful on the road. They want our company to be successful. They want the tour to be successful. So really trusting the drivers is probably our biggest, I would have to say, probably the biggest thing that we really focus on.
Do you have a chance to go to any of the shows and enjoy it?
All of them. Yes. I do. I try to get to most of the shows. They don't all come to Nashville. If they come to Nashville, that's fantastic. I can just go right down the street. But a lot of times I do have to travel and go to see the shows. And we try to get out there pretty early. If I can get out there early, if there's a long rehearsal period, I'll go to rehearsals, meet with the driving staff, make sure we're all on the same page. Go to one of the first shows. Sometimes if it's a really long tour, I'll try to check in about the halfway point, especially when it comes to the drivers. We do, when we have tours, especially with a bigger tour, we'll pack snacks and bags for the drivers at the beginning of the tour, gift cards to Chick-fil-A, everybody gets hoodies, water bottles, that kind of thing. And then we'll check in at the halfway point, see how they're doing, take them to dinner or lunch or whatever they can do, gift cards for massages, just make sure that everybody's doing well, staying healthy, acclimated to being on the road, and that they're doing all right. But going to the shows is definitely one of the perks. Yeah.
Well, but you bring up a good point too, is you're in the logistics business, but you're in the people business, right? Like you got to take care of your team. And we'll definitely talk about mental health in just a second and kind of the give back side, but touch on, for you, maybe a kind of a pinch me moment where it's like, some of your favorite bands or a chance to see a great show. Like what are one or two that stand out to you that are just like special moments or memories?
Yeah. Gosh, there's, I have to say, we like all the artists we work with. There's been some that I've never heard of that we're touring with, and I go to see it. Wow, that was amazing. I'd have to say I have some, there's some artists I will say that are very, very special for me. Switchfoot is one of them. One of our drivers that was on tour with them had been going through some difficulties, and it was his birthday. And Switchfoot found out that he was also a performer. And so on his birthday, they invited him out onto stage, and he played guitar and sang along with one of their songs. And for the last couple of weeks of the tour, he was on their set list. So he came out every single night and performed one show with Switchfoot. So that, that was, they're always going to be one of my favorites just because of how they treated the driver. That was pretty amazing. I think another one was probably we had two artists out on tour. They were both in New York at the same time. One played a pop-up show in Times Square. That was amazing. And then the other artist played the Hulu Theater that night. And then the very next night, the other artist played Madison Square Garden, sold out. So that was really cool to be sort of in that position where we're in New York City and we have artists playing in multiple locations. That was kind of a pinch me moment. I went, okay, this is real. We do this. Yeah.
So for you as a woman in business in a male-dominated, what I would consider a male-dominated industry and field, how does that play in for you to be a role model for other women to see you achieving and doing this and having these kind of pinch me moments? What does that mean to you to kind of stand out in traditionally a male-dominated field?
Yeah. So, I love this question because I think my answer is sometimes unexpected. I've always been treated well. I've always been respected in my field. I've never felt any differently than my male counterparts. I feel that, maybe even sometimes I'm encouraged more because I'm a female, but I think, there's so many women in the music industry now, and I think drivers, tour managers, CMA's tour manager of the year this year was a 20-something female who's killing it out there. So I think that there's a lot of women in the field. I encourage them, go out, do what you want to do. Don't feel like you can't do it. But I see that it's very acceptable now. I think that I've never seen it any different. I know other people have different experiences, absolutely. But I think that there's room for everybody, and that's male, female, young, old, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I just think it's important to see people succeeding at the highest levels who, especially for young girls, to say, hey, look at what she's accomplishing over here. That means I can do it too. And so I think these are just, for putting individuals up for all the right reasons, including the give back and the philanthropy. And, we mentioned mental health, but talk about community engagement, talk about board service and supporting nonprofits.
So I'm on the board of Touring Career Workshop. We are a nonprofit that serves the music industry. It's a great board. It's a great group, and we're doing a lot of exciting things. We've supported mental health for many years. We have a program that anyone in the touring community or their significant others at home can go onto our website. They can log in. They can look at counselors that are available for them, and we pay for their first 4 sessions, no questions asked. We started this program called All Access on Site, where we're going to festivals, some conferences, back to my trade show days, concerts, large concerts, and we're providing mental health services for touring crew that happen to be at that festival behind the scenes. So that's been really, really exciting to be a part of and seeing them grow. We've been at Bonnaroo, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits. I don't know if I'm letting a cat out of the bag. I think we're going to be at CMA Fest this year, providing mental health. So that's exciting. And one of the other things that I think we've talked about is one of your other guests, Brian Sweat with Mechanics on a Mission. Brian and I have collaborated a couple of times, and we've given away cars together to someone in the music industry that's needed it. We've done it twice now. And that's been really exciting. I think it's just been a great part. It's probably more of a blessing for me because I get to see it and be a part of it. And it's just so exciting. Yeah. So we love that part of the business that we are, those of us who can, are able to give back and help people that need it and just lift them up.
Yeah, to your point, Brian was recently on the show talking about Mechanics on a Mission and all the amazing work in terms of, taking the vehicles and having those donated and, renovating and rejuvenating and bringing them to life and, giving them to families in need and just the power of giving and all that plays in obviously to transportation. But I do want you to touch on, because I think you bring up a really great point around the mental health side, is that even when you were talking about your drivers, like it can be lonely. You're out there on tour, yes, and you're going to these amazing concerts where people are showing up and they're getting to see their favorite band. And, on one side of the equation, they're so excited, but on the others, they're missing their family. They're, even though you're surrounded by that energy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are in a positive state. And so I think having that support, especially when they're for long stretches of time on their own, is really important to make sure that they are, able to return home to their families, their friends, and be in a great positive state. So touch on kind of that aspect around why that's so important.
Yeah, well, you hit on that because I think when you're on tour, when you're an outsider looking in, right, you see the excitement, the music, the stage, the vibe, right? Nobody really comes out of a concert not being excited and happy. But the drivers are an interesting part. They're part of the crew, they're part of the team, but a lot of the time that they're spending alone because they're alone in their truck, they're driving after loadout, or they're driving for long periods of time by themselves. So it's really important for them, especially, but all touring crew, to know that they have support, that there's connections. Like I mentioned with TCW, a lot of the ability to go in and to get counseling sessions and to speak to a counselor has to do with not just being alone on the road, but how to integrate when you get back home. That's a challenge too that you don't really think about, is how do you go from being gone for 8 weeks and not seeing your family to all of a sudden you're home and they have their own patterns and rhythms and things that they do, and you're like, wow, I'm kind of a stranger in my own house. I mean, I don't really know what's happening and how do I fit in? And so I think mental health is just so important in making sure that you have the resources, you get the help that you need, you ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And another thing that we've done this year with TCW is we've implemented a new program called Day Off, which is a once a month, no agenda. Anybody in the touring industry can come, and we're just getting together as a community to spend time together. And it's could be almost anything. We've had a trivia night, we've had a cornhole tournament, we're going kayaking, we're going to a sounds game, we're going go-karting. So we're just doing things to get together as a community, because those are the people that understand what you're doing, what you go through, what it's like. And sometimes they don't know each other. They only know the crew that's on their own tour. So this is giving them an opportunity to really connect and to know other people and, and have that support system outside of the mental health community.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. We're talking with Sharon Lee, President and CEO of High Road Incorporated. Talk about where we can go to learn more about High Road Incorporated. Where can we go to carry this conversation forward?
Well, our website, of course, highroadusa.com. We are on Instagram, High Road USA. I'm on Instagram, Sharon High Road. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook, High Road Incorporated. So any of the regular social media sites, there we are.
Lots of easy ways to find you and connect. Once again, highroadusa.com. So Sharon, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jeremy, hope to see you at a show soon.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.